Candidate Forum. My name is Jennifer Morris. I'm a South Portland resident and board member of the League of Women Voters Portland area chapter. This forum is being live streamed and recorded. The League is a 102-year-old nonpartisan organization that never supports or opposes any political party or candidates. We do care deeply about elections and voter information. The purpose of this forum is information gathering. It's not a debate or a discussion. The candidates here this evening are running for 2 at-large city council seats. Welcome, candidates, and thank you for your participation. We have 90 minutes for questions and answers. The candidates will have a 90-second response time, so a minute and a half. They have been given the questions beforehand to encourage well-thought-out answers. Our timekeepers will help us stay on track. The yellow card means the candidate has a remaining 15 seconds. The red card means stop. Before we begin, a few ground rules. Candidates, please stay within the allotted time. No crosstalk. Clarify a point only during your time. Please listen respectfully and speak civilly. Everyone, please silence your cell phones. Audience, no clapping or yelling or disturbances. And don't block the exits. Now, let's proceed. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for their opening statement. Steve, will you please begin?
Okay, I know who's going first. Hi, my name's Steve Silver. You may recognize me from pushing a double stroller on the Greenbelt, playing with my dog Pepper on Willard Beach, or maybe even singing Wheels on the Bus during baby swim classes at the rec center. I'm here tonight to convince you to vote for me in this election. And the top reason you should comes down to 2 words written by our mayor, who's here tonight, in a letter to Governor Mills just a few weeks ago. Financial ruin. Financial ruin is what our mayor said we're facing by the end of this year if we don't have a plan to house asylum seekers and unhouse people currently living in hotels. It's a humanitarian and fiscal crisis that's about to explode. That's not hyperbole. Financial ruin is what Mayor Dolick said awaits this city. So I'm running to make sure that doesn't happen. I'm running to make sure City Council focuses every waking second on solving this problem instead of trivial matters, like who throws a tennis ball on the beach, or what forms of payment our private businesses can accept. I'm running so my 1-year-old twins can have a bright future in this community. I'm running to create a community where neighbors enjoy public spaces without spying on each other. I'm running to make sure that my neighbors, many of whom are on fixed incomes and are dealing with the worst inflation in decades, don't have to shell out more tax money because City Council can't seem to budget properly. I'm running to restore common sense to this city. I never intended to run. I've got twin boys who are crawling at full speed now. I've got a rescue dog who needs her walks, a loving wife, and a full-time job. But I can't sit on the sidelines any longer. I'm running because I'm passionate about solving the issues in this city, and I'm ready to get to work. If you want immediate, practical solutions from someone who's not afraid to make hard decisions or voice a dissenting opinion, you'll vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Natalie?
Thank you, League of Women Voters, all those who are here tonight, those who are listening at home, and those who will listen in the future. My name is Natalie West, and I'm running for City Council in South Portland. My husband and I have been South Portland property owners for 17 years. Initially, we were part-time residents, and now we live here full-time. We're also small landlords who take pride in our property and appreciate our tenants. We have family members, including 2 grandchildren, who live in the area. Over the past decade, I've met many of you because I've been involved in a number of issues here in South Portland to try to make our community a little bit better with every bit of citizen interaction and involvement. I spent my working years as an attorney for local government, including serving as a city attorney for a number of different cities in California over a period of 25 years. Unlike Mr. Silver, I'm not running against any particular person or any particular program. I support the work our city has done. I support our city manager and the staff he has brought into our city. I think our council works hard, and in general, I think it does a good job. Yes, we have challenges, and I think I have the skills, the experience, the ability, and energy to deal with those problems, and that's why I ask for your support in November.
Thank you. Richard?
Hello, I am Richard Matthews. I am the former chair of the South Portland School Board, but all the committees that I've served on and all the boards I've served on in South Portland, I've lived here all my life. You know, my greatest accomplishments are what my wife and I have pulled off, and that's raising 3 amazing children. Our oldest, Dustin, is 32. He is the director of operations at Macintosh Pallet out of Syracuse, New York. My 20-year-old son, Aaron, is the assistant manager for Bass Savings Bank. And I have a sophomore at St. Joe's College who holds many college records at St. Joseph College. So that's my biggest accomplishment, is raising 3 beautiful children in one of the most beautiful cities in America, if not the beautifulest. I'll tell you, I love South Portland, and being a city councilor, I'm excited about it, and I want to be a city councilor, and I want to be part of the solutions for all the crisis that we have, you know, and I just want people to be heard. I want people to be respected and listened to, and I want them to be part of everything that goes on in this community. So that's why I'm running for city council.
Thank you. Please be sure you silence your cell phones. Brendan?
Hello, my name is Brendan Williams, and thank you so much for hosting this tonight, and appreciate all of you for coming. I'm basically running because I'm hearing impaired. 1 in 4 people in the entire country have a disability. Not many people with disabilities serve on local government. Not many people can name somebody with a disability on local government. During the height of the COVID, the city council wanted a mask mandate, which I supported 100%. However, there were problems since I was working in South Portland with the mask being covered and I wouldn't be able to read lips. So I called in the city council, told them I support the mask mandate, but I would like an exception for people communicating with people who are deaf and hard of hearing. And then they went away, then they did that. I appreciate it. And then I thought, well, maybe instead of sitting at home and calling into Zoom meetings, I'd just run. Why not? So I'm happy to be here. I work in a restaurant at Scales in the Old Port. And I believe that people that work in restaurants and young people like myself need to have a voice on city government. And so I do want to represent senior citizens, young people, everybody, restaurant workers. And yeah, so I'm just happy to be here. And I hope if I win, I'll make the city a better place for everybody.
Thank you. Now we're moving on to the questions part of this forum, and we're going to start with Brendan, and it'll be 90 seconds. So what are the 3 best things about living in South Portland?
Number 1 is waking up in the morning and going to a local coffee shop and hanging out with my friends and the regulars at the coffee shop. That's the highlight of my morning, hanging out with the locals, hearing about stuff going on in town. A lot of them are a lot older than me, so they also have hearing impairment, so that's always a benefit. That's basically my crowd. Also, I love the scenery. If you're part of the South Portland Facebook group and you see my pictures, the beauty when you post a picture of the Green Beltway or the lighthouse, you put it on Instagram, somebody that lives in South America, Russia, Ukraine, they like it, they're commenting on it, it means a lot. It means people outside of this country are looking at pictures of the town and complimenting how beautiful it is. Makes me lucky to be here with the surroundings. And also the final thing would be the committees. I know we have a million committees, we can all agree on that, but at least they give citizens a place to put their foot in the water and get involved in city politics. I'm on 2 committees, and that helped pave the way for me to be interested in getting involved more in local politics, and I appreciate they'd open those doors for the citizens.
Thank you. Natalie?
This is an interesting question because it's fun to see what everybody says. For me, well, actually, I would say that Fortune magazine has already answered this question for some of us by announcing that South Portland is one of the 25 best places to raise a family in the United States. And I certainly agree with that. But for me personally, living by the sea is really important. Those of you who know me well, and you can tell I was sailing today, which is part of why I have sort of a sunburn. I forgot to put on sunscreen. But I enjoy spending time on the water, in the water, and beside the water. Beyond that, for me, it's important to live in a community with a mix of different sorts of people and not a purely residential community. And that, interestingly, again, Fortune magazine said that they excluded any city that didn't have, that had more than 90% white non-Hispanic population. And so that they recognize the importance that diversity brings for the makeup of a community. It's also very important to me to live in a town or city that values education and the quality of its schools. South Portland has and continues to have put a lot of resources in its schools. When we first started living here pretty much full-time, they had just voted down the bond issue for the high school, which then was redone and voted in, and we improved the high school, and I am very happy with the resources that we put into our schools, which help all of us, whether or not we have children in the schools.
Thank you. Can the rest of you hear well except for this gentleman?
Are the mics?
Would someone, like Ralph, would you go and ask the SBC TV guys for a hearing amplifier? This gentleman's doing it. Great. Richard, your 90 seconds.
All right. Well, I'm going to say my three favorite things are Reds, Willard Scoops, and DQ. Thank you. No, I'm kidding. Seriously. So, I've been here so long that I have 1,000 best things. It's not just three. I love the beaches. I love the parks. I love the school communities. I love everything about South Portland. I can't pick and choose. But if I had to pick one, it would be the people. The people. I love the laid-back attitudes of the people. The no sense. They don't beat around the bush when they have an opinion. I'm in the community all the time, and I talk to people. I love going to places where they say either, hello, Richard, hello, Mr. Matthews, hello, Dick, whatever. I don't care. But, not many people call me Richard. That was a mom thing when she got mad at me. But anyway, I just, being part of a community where everybody will give you a smile or say hello to you at a park or a store or wherever you are, that's the greatest thing about South Portland right there, the people.
Thank you, Richard. Steve?
I can attest to what Dick said. We had coffee at Sia Cafe, and I think every 30 seconds he got stopped to someone to say hi to him. So it was fun. Look, Fortune magazine's ranking tells it all, and we experienced how difficult it actually makes it for new people to the city. So we searched for over a year before we could find our house, getting outbid on house after house. Agents telling us, don't even bother because there's someone coming from Boston or New York who's going to pay more. But we found our dream home on Pine Street in 2018. And I say it's a dream because South Portland provides incredible access to nature while also feeling like a city, right? And so it's hard to list three things, but number one would be the Greenbelt. We walk it every single day, push the double stroller on it, and we attract a lot of attention. I think everyone at the Betsy Ross House has come out at some point and wanted to stop and tell us their twin stories. I also love to eat, so I'll skip the ice cream. Dick covered that, but Taco Trio, Cafe Louis, the Canishery, Docks, Sopo Seafood. There's so many things for a city this size. We're so fortunate. And lastly, Willard Beach. It's a truly magical place, and it's where I found my sense of community. My wife and I made a lot of friends from playing with our dog on the beach from all over South Portland, people we never would have met otherwise. So if I'm elected, I'll make sure the beach and all of our public spaces are preserved for everyone to share.
Thank you. Our second question. Please give an example of the process you would use working through a divisive problem in town. I'm going to read that again, and I'll try to do it better. Please give an example of the process you would use working through a divisive problem. Natalie, can you please begin?
Right. Those of us who have been here for a while will remember the process the City Council went through when it was developing the Clear Skies Ordinance. It appointed a committee of 3 people who spent a great deal of time gathering information and listening to others. And then the committee made a recommendation to the council that the council adopted. That approach was a good example of effective government on a divisive issue. What were the aspects that it contained? The starting points, and the single most important part of working through a divisive problem is listening to different points of view. The next is to gather factual information, as much specific information as you can gather. Then, to hope all parties realize that there's a benefit to compromise. You can't always get what you want. And frequently it helps to take a break, to think over what's been said, the information that's been brought out, or to make some changes and see how it works. If something has been changed, don't rush back in and try to redo it because there were a few parts of it that weren't right for you. Live with it for a while. And I think if we follow those principles, we can have a community that works effectively to solve our complicated and divisive problems. Thank you.
Richard.
This is a tough question to answer in 90 seconds because I personally don't think that coming here into City Hall and trying to solve divisive and complicated issues is the best place to be. I mean, you come here and you get to talk for a couple of minutes and it can be unsatisfying. So I think that's why it's important for city councilors to answer emails and phone calls, and even if it's text messages. It's important that people feel respected and heard. And the only way that's going to happen is through communication. The best skill in communication is listening. You know, we have a lot, as Mr. Williams said, we have a lot of committees, and all these committees need to remember that when they're making their plan, they have to think of the whole plan. They can't just think of, you know, okay, we're working on this, but they should be thinking, okay, how is this going to affect the other committees? Okay, so it's really important. I also think it's important that we figure out ways to reach people who work long hours or who have mobility issues and aren't able to make it to Zoom or city council meetings.
Thank you. Steve?
Sure. So I have to do this every day. I'm an employment litigator. I'm also chair of the State Gambling Control Board. And before that, I was on the Maine State Board of Property Tax Review, where I chaired, I don't know, half a dozen different mini trials, right? So we serve as the judge and jury. There's always multiple sides to every story, issue, argument. So first you have to put aside your own personal preconceived notions and biases and listen to people's opinions and experiences. But you can't truly understand any problem without having the facts and data first. You have to ask the who, what, where, when, and why. I'm a journalist by background, right? I have a journalism degree. I worked in newspapers. So you got to ask those questions. Gather the facts first. Don't make policy and then gather the facts. That doesn't make sense. Sometimes you actually have to go experience things in person, talk to the people who are affected in person, kind of like what Dick was saying with communication, before you can make that decision. And finally, you have to weigh the consequences, right? Are there unintended consequences for an otherwise facially good policy? Every action has a reaction, and you have to understand it. You cannot solve a divisive problem on the whims at the 11th hour at a late night council meeting. You just can't. And if I can't explain why a decision I made is good for the community, then I shouldn't be making that decision.
Thank you. Brendan?
So first, I would, when it comes to this kind of issue, I would make sure all sides are not just heard, but they feel heard. There's a big difference between the two. Just letting a side speak and not really listening or acknowledging what's being said devalues those folks' opinion. We need to respect another side's opinion, even if we disagree. If I'm on the council, I am not just going to give my opinion about how to proceed, but I'm going to tell you why I came to that decision. I would identify the points of disagreement and have a discussion to see how close or far apart the sides are. I would ask the other side on any issue what would help them come to an agreement. What is the possible compromise that works for the best of and most of everybody involved? However, that being said, I would not compromise my values and beliefs for just to get a vote or just make someone happy. I would stand by my principles and what I believe, but I also would make decisions on what helped the community as a whole and the community going forward. Most of the divisive problem I solve now, I'm not a lawyer, take place in a restaurant. It involved I didn't like my bread or my soup, but it doesn't hurt to bring that experience to the council. So that's how I would solve a divisive problem in the city.
Thank you. The next question. Please explain your position on affordable housing. Richard, will you please start?
I never claimed to be a housing expert, and fortunately we hire people who will give us reports and help us with a good roadmap for affordable housing. And we need to listen to the experts and the people who build houses. We have so many great contractors and so many builders in this city. And, they're the people that we need to reach out to. They're the people that we need to hear from. But we also need to hear from the people that can't afford to live here. Some people feel that it's unfortunate that our firefighters, our police officers, our nurses, our teachers can't afford to live here. And those are the people that we need to listen to too. I'm not so sure that, I know for a fact it's not healthy for our community, and it's a big warning sign when people who want to work here and be here can't be, and they're pushed to the outskirts of different places, and they're driving an hour into work and everything. So it's such a complex conversation. It's not something, it's a conversation that I need to get on board with the other counselors and, work and see what their thought process is, see if it's in line with my own.
Steve.
It's no secret that housing is one of the biggest problems facing the city, particularly the lack of it. We're short thousands of units to meet the demand. And yet we continue to do things that maybe it's unintended consequence, but we stifle development, right? We saw what happened with the sprinkler ordinance. And the electric vehicle charging mandate could do the same, depending upon what form it ultimately passes. Every dollar we add to building costs will lead to higher rents. That's just a simple fact. So we need to make housing more affordable by eliminating pointless bureaucratic hurdles to build new housing in the city. Additionally, we need to re-examine some of our outdated ordinances. And I'll give you a quick example. My neighbors right up the street, they purchased a 2-unit place several years ago. They converted it into a single-family home, lived in it. They had a baby, they took in an elderly parent, and they needed to move. So when they moved out, they planned to switch it back to 2 units, which is just an internal conversion, and rent it out. That's a net add of 2 units to the city. But you know what the city said? No, you can't do it, because when you switched it back, you lost the ability to have 2 units because your lot size is too small. Now, how does that make any sense? It was 2 units before. So if that happens just a few dozen times across the city, that's about 50 plus new units without a single shovel in the ground, right? That's an example of what we can do with some common sense to solve these problems.
Thank you. Brendan.
Like Mr. Matthews said, I'm also not an expert in the housing thing. However, I was raised by a single mother, and in California, we were displaced many times. My mom and I had to live on a boat. We lived in a motel, many apartments. So I do know what it's like to be displaced multiple times. I do support the rent stabilization that the council did a workshop on last week. However, I don't think it builds affordable housing. What I think it put the pause on all the displacement that we could be looking at with people out on the street and all that stuff. One way I want to do is have a fund, a city fund, or put money towards investing and having homeowners convert some of their houses into a unit for college kids, senior, anybody coming in. I do think when when a homeowner makes that decision, they are given to the community and providing housing for somebody that really needs it. And I think the city should really invest in that. Before I lived at my current place, I lived out on Fellow Street for a couple years in a house. Homeowner rented out their bedroom and did it. And I really support people that do that, and I want to see more of that, because that's going to be the future of housing in the city.
And Natalie?
This is probably the lawyer in me, but affordable housing, usually the term usually means assistance for low-income individuals as opposed to workforce housing. So I was thinking, my thinking on this was that with regard to affordable housing for low-income individuals with housing vouchers or housing designed for residents with low incomes, from what I know, our South Portland Housing Authority has done a very good job in that regard. They manage over 1,000 units of affordable housing. It's not all in South Portland, but I think that we can be very proud of what they've done. And they administer 389 housing vouchers for housing that goes into other apartments that they don't own, but it's a subsidized form. I've supported and I continue to support the Housing Authority as long as its projects are consistent with the comprehensive plan designations for the proposed areas and with neighborhood density. There was one instance where that was not the case, and I worked with the neighborhood to prevent a development that vastly exceeded the comprehensive plan density, and that was the Meeting House, what now is the Meeting House Lofts project. In another instance, I tried to reorient the proposal to meet applicable standards, but that wasn't successful. And in 2 other cases, I've supported projects that have now been constructed on Main Street and the Hub.
Thank you. The next question. What are your top 2 priorities for the comprehensive plan? And we'll start with Steve.
Number 1 has to be housing development. We have to build, and we need housing of various sizes and prices. Some neighborhoods may be better suited for multifamily units, while others are better for studio-sized ADUs. As a city, we need to make it easier to build new housing, not harder, and I certainly wouldn't be working to stop new development at this time. We've seen the reports. We need more units. And as we build housing, though, we do have to think of the strain on existing resources, right? Schools, roads, first responders. And we have to get smart about raising revenue without increasing taxes. And I'll talk about that later tonight. And so related to that, the other priority has to be transportation infrastructure. Make sure we're capable of handling additional people and vehicles. Right now, we're not as pedestrian and bike friendly as we should be. And that's a huge safety issue I think about all the time when I'm trying to cross Broadway with the stroller and dodge cars who do not stop at those crosswalks. So I want to recognize Officer Navarro and the Bicycle Pedestrian Safety Committee who've really been working hard at calming traffic and navigating some pretty tricky jurisdictional issues and budget restraints. So as a counselor, I want to make sure that that committee and our police have everything they need to accomplish their goals with respect to the traffic infrastructure.
Thank you. Brendan.
I do know, I did read, I think, the comprehensive plan they posted online, the PDF, 400 pages. However, being on the Human Rights Commission, I worked basically focusing on diversity, inclusion, and equity. So I do know a little bit more on that area. I do think that is a priority. I know a lot of people say we're very diverse, we're very welcoming, and yes, we are, and all that. However, for an example, when at my apartment building, when there was a fire in the basement, me being hearing impaired, and two asylum seekers don't know a word of English, it was very difficult to figure out who would call 911. There was a language barrier there. And I do think why it's great that we're welcoming diversity, and we should, but I think that we got to go a step further. We got to make sure that we have things translated in different things. That is great for me, but maybe they could be translated in a different language or subtitles. So we need to find many, many ways to make them inclusive in the community. Second thing would be the environment. That is very important to me. Climate change is real. I know being from California, I'm more surrounded by wildfires and other stuff, and we don't feel that here, but nobody's immune to climate change. And a lot of the comprehensive plan does focus on the environment, and I would always advocate for that to be moved forward in the future of South Portland.
Thank you. And Natalie?
Our comprehensive plan is a blueprint for the future of our community, and we're currently involved in updating the one that was adopted 10 years ago. This is a very important issue for me because I was here 10 years ago, and I saw what happened when certain vested interests were able to insert sentences at key parts of the code of the plan that serve their own interest. So I'm particularly interested in process. I want to assure continued public involvement. So I hope you all take a look at the webpage, which is southportland2040.com, and participate in the meetings and the other opportunities that our planning director is making available to the public. With regard to the substance, I am very concerned about what I call workforce housing. And that's how do we provide housing to meet the needs of people who grow up here and who work here and who want to live here. Based on my experience, workforce housing is critical for a thriving community. I've worked with many communities to have housing that meets the goals of the community and at the same time preserve the character of our neighborhoods. And there are ways to do it. I'll talk about it a little bit later when I have my next opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Richard?
Well, I applaud all your answers, so I'm not going to repeat it, and I'm going to keep my answers short. My two things, I guess, would be preserve the things that make our community special and prepare for the changes that are inevitable, be it climate change or demographic changes, so we can make them opportunities and not just challenges we are blindsided by. Thank you.
All right. Our next question is about traffic. And we're going to start with you, Brendan. How would you address the traffic growth?
We need to improve our transportation big time. I don't drive, but I do take the bus a lot, and there's always improvement for that. I know it's weird living in South Portland, because when you come from San Francisco to South Portland, you don't have a problem with the bus, because everyone takes the bus. My family grew up in New York. Then people that live in rural Maine and they move to here, they're like, oh, the bus, what's that? So I know there's a little, but the bus is wonderful. I love the bus. But besides that, getting a little more technical, I do think we need to invest in technology to monitor the car traffic and the traffic light and pedestrian and bike, and start doing more studies about how to reduce it. I know we are in a weird geography spot. We got all these different towns, and they got to obviously go to work in Portland. So I know we can't just pick up South Portland and move it. No, that's not going to work. So I do think we need to find ways to take advantage of public transportation more, get that out there, and monitor the traffic we also have. This is going to be a weird, random idea that just popped into my head, but maybe an app that tells you when that bridge is going to open up. I think we all been stuck in traffic during the bridge. If I was calling an Uber and I knew that bridge was going to pop up in 5 minutes, I would take a pause on my Uber and wait till the bridge came down, because I do think that causes a lot of traffic in Mill Creek. So yeah.
Thank you. Natalie?
Well, I've been involved in a couple of traffic issues here in South Portland, and one was that the school crossing guard on Pillsbury near Small School asked me for help in reducing the speed limit. Cars spread down the hill toward the crossing, and it caused a dangerous situation for students in the crosswalk. I was able to work with her, and it took going all the way to Augusta, but we reduced the speed limit to 25, and the city put up new signs. Also in Knightville, we worked with residents on a plan for a different approach to parking and reasonable traffic flow on Ocean, and that plan's now been implemented. But in a bigger sense, I support everything the city has done in the past few years to improve pedestrian crossings, flashers, the traffic pylons, the sidewalk bump outs. Those are measures that help make our community safer and better for pedestrians. I support the overall goal as outlined in our One Climate Future, which is designing and connecting our homes, businesses, and public spaces around an efficient transportation network. We need to have balanced growth so that people can live and work in the same area. I believe in improving public transit networks to make it easier to take transit, as Brendan said, and particularly the SMCC students along the Broadway corridor. I want to use the comprehensive plan process to support and identify neighborhood development that's more oriented toward bus, pedestrian, and bicycle transportation, and recognize that our green belt is a tremendous resource for our community and continue to improve it.
Thank you. Richard?
When my wife and I moved on to Boothby Avenue back in 2005, I believe, I used to be able to go to the end and go to Highland Avenue and go up to a store or go to Hannaford, and it would only take me 2 minutes. Now it takes me about 30 minutes. It's absolutely crazy. I think there's a lot that we can do, and I know there's many people with great ideas, and we need to listen to them. But it also comes back to what Natalie said. Great comprehensive planning. We need it. And housing density in certain areas will make public transportation, transit, and buses work more efficiently. We need to think holistically about growth, housing, transportation, and preserving open space. So, I did a few ride-alongs with police because traffic was becoming a big concern with school children. And to watch the amount of heavy traffic, speeding traffic, texting on the cell phones, we need to beef that up too with our police department, making sure that we don't have those problems. But it's definitely an infrastructure problem that we have, and we need to look at that and come up with some good solutions.
Thank you. Stephen?
Yep, as Dick said, I live right near the Boys and Girls Club, so I see the kids who the school bus puts them on one side of Broadway and they got to cross. And that crosswalk, the little blinker, it doesn't matter to people. So the new pylons I really like. I know some don't, but it's a test. And that's the kind of ideas we need to test out with that pilot project for the next few months. We'll see what the survey results say. But in terms of dealing with the immediate issue, congestion and traffic, right? It's definitely become a problem over the past few years. So that means we've got to get less cars on the road. How do we do that? Right? We need to make it so it's safe to ride your bike, to walk places, that it's accessible. A number of the sidewalks and the on and off are not accessible right now. Particularly in the winter, it's impossible. And whether you're in a wheelchair or pushing a stroller, it's even more impossible. So we have to look at the bus system, right? It was mentioned the SMCC students. I've heard horror stories from them when I talk to them about trying to get back to Portland or Westbrook. So we have to, determine, is there something better we can do with our bus system or join a different network? And I know it gets floated every so often, but a water ferry to Portland, at least in the summer when it's tourism season, may not be a bad idea if it's financially viable.
Thank you. Our next question. What is your point of view on One Climate Future's goals? Begin with Natalie.
Our One Climate Future is a joint plan for resiliency and sustainability between Portland and South Portland. It identifies 4 main areas: climate resilience, waste reduction, transportation and land use, buildings, and energy use. I support it. I support these goals. I think it's very exciting to have 2 cities, Portland and South Portland, working together to create a sustainable future.
Thank you. Richard?
I support the One Climate. I think the committees have done a great job. We can't bury our head in the sand and act like nothing's happening. If we make smart investments, we'll be able to save money in the long run. It's another reason to be fiscally responsible when it comes to prioritizing our spending. We're a coastal community, and, you know, climate change could really impact us. You know, I don't know, you know, I rely on people who have more knowledge of this than I do. Again, part of being a city councilor, I think, is doing a lot of homework and talking to a lot of people and not just giving you my opinion. I want a lot of people's opinions, and I want to be able to, you know, choose what the best answer is. I'm proud of the leadership role that South Portland's taken in this, and I think it's an important process that we continue to move forward with.
Thank you. Steve?
Look, I want my children to grow up with safe air to breathe and clean water to drink. I think everyone does. That's non-negotiable. But there's not one single way to get where we want to go, and we have to be very careful of unintended consequences. Right? As one example, we shouldn't be in the business of forcing private property owners and our private businesses to shoulder the cost of installing electric vehicle chargers. Right? If that adds cost to building, rents go up, the price of the building goes up. I always prefer a carrot to a stick. So if that's our goal, let's provide incentives to do so, right? Let's incentivize the new developers to put in those electric vehicle chargers instead of issuing a blanket mandate. On a similar vein, it's awesome that we want to incentivize the city to electrify everything, right? You've probably all seen the signs throughout the city, but we're only offering it to a small subset of the population. That doesn't help achieve the end goal. If we're offering incentives, let's offer it to everybody. We need to be smart in reaching for our climate goals and understand that South Portland is unique, partly because of our geography and because of our population and proximity to Portland. So what works for Berkeley, California, or Austin, Texas, or Portland, Oregon may not work for South Portland. We don't always have to follow. We can be leaders.
Thank you. Brendan?
I support the One Climate Future goal 100,000,000%. I went through the website and met people involved. I support every single thing they do and love every bit of it. I do think we need to move toward relying on renewable energy as a city. 4 cities in this country have already moved towards sourcing 70% of or more of their energy from solar and wind. Also, we need to find ways for property owners and even businesses that want to have solar panels, small wind turbines, those are always possible. As a stand-up comedian, I travel around the state. I have been to small towns where almost every building has a solar panel, a little solar panel. I want to see that in South Portland. I want to be able to walk from Hannaford back to my house and see beautiful solar panels and little wind turbines everywhere. It is possible. It's been done. Being from California, I've seen many places put that up, and I think we can do that in South Portland, Maine. And I would like to work with One Climate Change on anything they're doing to move the city forward.
Thank you. Now, next question. Sorry, I lost track here for a second. Can the city create more open space while addressing the housing shortage? Richard?
Well, in short, yes. We need to be really strategic about it and thoughtful about it. It can't just be one committee that makes a decision and it goes to the city council and it's rubber stamped, so to speak. We need input from many committees and many perspectives, and most importantly, we need to complete as Natalie, Steve, and Brendan has said, we need to complete the comprehensive plan. But while we go through this process, we can't stop all the development, and we can't develop everywhere all at once, so there's nothing left. If we acquire some land, I think that we need to think about waiting before we put it into a trust where it can't be developed until the comprehensive plan is done. Because we need to take into account how the city may change in the future due to things like climate change or, you know, whatever changes that may come about. We can't see the future. So we have to take that into account.
Thank you. Steve?
Well, the answer is yes. We can and should do both. There's no question we have to add housing units. We have tremendous demand with limited supply. But we can get smart here. There are a ton of existing units, like I said earlier, we're leaving on the table that don't require eliminating public space. I think the state law and ADUs are going to help with that a lot. There's also a lot of red tape, like I mentioned, about converting single-family homes into different uses. So we can eliminate that. And we can create new public spaces by incentivizing developers to use part of the land for a new park, for public art, for planting new different species of plants or trees to meet whatever our plans are for that. We can do that. Again, carrot better than a stick. And I think our current council has it the reverse right now. At the same time, we have to take really good care of what we have. I think iconic pieces of the city like Bug Light Park must be protected. But we also need to address Hinckley's toxic algae bloom that happens every year. We have to eliminate the raw sewage that scientists said are seeping into our runoff into Willard Beach. That's happening right now. So we need to take care of the trails and the parks that we have and make our current open spaces truly open for all and ensure that they're clean and safe.
Thank you. Brendan?
Yes, we can. You can have both. I do feel like the future of housing does rely in family homes, opening the doors, and then also renovating old buildings. We have a bunch of them into affordable housing and other rental units. At the same time, we do have open space. I know a lot of people say we buy too much open space, we don't do anything with it. I do believe that when we do that, or the city does that, there needs to be a plan in place. That could be anything. That could even include having a community garden where various restaurants around town have their own little garden. I've seen towns do that. And then when you go to the restaurant, you get fresh produce from a garden up the street. I think that's a wonderful idea, preserving the trails. But there are a way that we can do both. And I think if we think smart about it, and it may look at, I know people don't like changing zoning, it may involve a little bit of that, but there is a way to do both. The city is only getting bigger. I just don't want to be the next Beverly Hills. I want it to be a place where working people came. That's how South Portland pretty much got started, and I think we need to keep it that way, but we do need to be smart about it.
Thank you. Natalie?
Yes, we can. That's my attitude toward government in general. Yes, we can. But one way is to use our existing open space more effectively. And within the past few weeks, we've seen an example of that with the dedication of the new trail at Clark's Pond. That created a 2.1-mile trail that goes the entire way around the pond and makes that bit of open space much more usable for members of the community. Another way is to recognize the importance of compromise. One of the projects I've worked on is the piggery. It took about 7 years, but last year, the city was able to work out a process where approximately 4 acres of land will remain as open space, and the other 2 will be available for housing. Finally, we need to address the issue of the unused crude oil storage tanks. We need to work with Portland Pipeline, which is the only company in South Portland handling crude oil, to remove tanks and make that land available for reuse, which can include both open space and redevelopment. And other uses that will build a stronger economic base for our community. I am confident that someday we will have housing and parks across the street from our high school instead of empty oil tanks. I am also confident that Portland Pipeline can be a partner instead of an adversary in this effort, and that is one of my highest priorities as a city councilor.
Thank you very much. The next question. What is your position on managing the homeless situation? I'm going to start with Steve.
So I took this question to mean all unhoused individuals. And that includes asylum seekers and those who are homeless that were moved from Portland. The first solution is to build. We need more housing. As to what is going on in our hotels right now, I'm the grandson of immigrants. When they came over, people didn't want them to come here. All right, so I know that firsthand. And I'm proud that South Portland is one of the few communities that stepped up to welcome all of these people. We have to take care of other people, but we can't do it alone. We need a long-term financial plan, which unfortunately the city does not have. FEMA funding runs out this month. Emergency rental assistance funds run out at the end of the year. And as I said earlier, to quote the mayor, South Portland will be in, quote, financial ruin. Mayor Dolick estimates South Portland will be on the hook for $1.3 million per month. That's $15.5 million per year. That's 15 times our budget allocation for general assistance. And that will result in a minimum of a 21% property tax increase. That's roughly $1,500 on the average home in South Portland. So do you have an extra $1,500 laying around? We need to be knocking on the doors of Cape and Falmouth and Westbrook to step up and either provide housing or chip in to help us do it. We need to lobby the federal government. We need to get tough with the people in Augusta. There's a big surplus there. They should be writing a check today to help these people. It's a humanitarian crisis.
Thank you, Steve. Brendan?
We need more short-term. We need a homeless shelter or short-term housing thing in South Portland. I know they're staying at the motels, and I am very happy and appreciative that they did step up. But I think that that's not going to be forever. It is a federal and state problem. It's also a city problem because I believe once the asylum seekers, the people who suffer from homelessness, come into the city, they're a member of the community automatically. I know Portland's working on a homeless shelter. There's so many people who are homeless in other places. I don't even know if everyone in South Portland homeless right now are even going to be in that homeless shelter because they're not building some giant mega shelter. So I do think we need a short-term housing facility because we do get asylum seekers, we do get people suffering from homelessness being displaced, and I want them a place where they can go and have food, water, shelter, and then they can get back on their feet. That being said, there's also a mental health aspect to it. I do believe we need to help with the police and fire department handle those situations. They get many calls to the motels. That doesn't mean somebody's committing a crime. It means somebody is suffering from mental health problems, and somebody did call 911 because they didn't know. We need to train or get more mental health services in it because that's a major problem, and those people need to be helped immediately.
Thank you. Natalie?
I support what Brendan said, and I'm not going to repeat him. I'll try to add a little bit of different thing, but I do want to reiterate that it's not just a local problem. It's a regional problem, a state problem, and in some instances, a national problem. And South Portland should not be asked to do it on its own. So we need to turn to other levels of government for assistance. And I think that's what the mayor's letter was doing. I think it's been kind of misquoted here tonight. And as Brendan said, addressing the homeless situation means providing more than shelter. We need to try to understand the causes of homelessness, provide services that address the causes. If it's substance abuse or mental health, fine. Sometimes it's domestic abuse or predatory landlords. Perhaps there's job training opportunities or health care for physical health problems. And we can't ignore the problem that as we manage homelessness, in some senses it attracts other homeless people, and that becomes a problem too. But with regard to asylum seekers, I do want to say that we need to allow them to work. That it requires change at the federal level. I've met with Shelley Pingree. I've talked to her about if I get elected, introducing a resolution in this body that will support her legislation. Senator Collins also has legislation on the same point. We need a solution at the federal level that allows our asylum seekers to work when they get here. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard?
Well, I'm going to just say that you all answered that very well, and being last on that one's a tough one, but, we're a city of compassion. We can't bear and shouldn't have to bear all the costs. We need county, federal, state help. It is a crisis, and the answer Steve gave, the answer Brendan gave, and the answer Natalie gave are all on point. And, you're just going to hear me repeat the same exact thing. I think Steve actually stole my paper because our words were very similar. So, but anyway, I really think that we need to reach out to different areas within the region and see if we can find other type of support and financially as well. So.
Thank you. Our next question. How should the city address our tax rates? And we'll start with Brendan.
The way it should address our tax rate is have a local option tax. I think that's a little work on the state level. I believe I'm not a tax expert at all. But from my little Google research to answer the question, I do support a local option tax rate. Other places, Bar Harbor's considering it, and San Francisco had done it. The question is, what are we taxing and what would it be used for? The several options is hotels is an idea. Liquor is an idea, and marijuana shops is an idea. Many towns are looking at the marijuana shop because they come into the town and they want to, and they feel like they should benefit and stuff. Then the question is, where does that money go when we have a local option tax? And I think that should go to a property tax relief, because that is a problem for a lot of people. I've knocked on doors almost every day since I started, and that's come up. And I don't want people to lose their homes. Then we add more to the homeless crisis we were just talking about. People living in their homes for many, many years, and the taxes. So I do think that's a good idea, something to look at. Require a lot of tax experts, but that's what I would support 100%.
Thank you. Natalie.
I'd like to see some data that helps me understand specifically what percentage taxes are going up in South Portland. It's actually hard to figure out. And I come from a system where tax increases are limited to 2% a year, which forces local government to live within its means, just like a family has to live within its means. So I am committed to trying to hold taxes down. I do want to say, however, that a candidate who says he will never vote to raise taxes is either naive or irresponsible, because the cost of government does go up, especially now when we're in inflationary times. I have some suggestions. One is to make sure we're taxing property fairly. Here's an example. According to the newspapers, Red Bank sold for $143 million. Red Bank is assessed on our South Portland tax rolls at slightly over $72 million. That is half of what it sold for on the open market. That's $70 million of value, fair market value, that is not being taxed, imposed a property tax. I think that's something we need to look at and something we need to understand. I also believe in encouraging economic development that will add to our tax rolls. I want to be proactive and apply for grant funds so that we don't have to impose a burden on our taxpayers for infrastructure, particularly now with all the infrastructure funds coming in. And finally, I want to look at state payments. This year, for the first year, Governor Mills adequately funded our schools.
Thank you. Richard?
Thank you. It starts with budget prioritization. We can't say yes to everything, and we can't do everything, and we can't do everything right now. The other piece is we have to grow the tax base. We have to support businesses. We need smart development that brings dollars into home so homeowners aren't squeezed into oblivion. We pay as a community for all our tourists from Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York, everywhere. We pay for their fun. We pay for them to come here and enjoy our beaches, our restaurants and everything. And I get that they come in, they bring dollars into the city and they buy at our restaurants, they buy at our stores, and I get that. But you go to Massachusetts, you go to New York, and your hotel, we have thousands of hotels in South Portland, hotel rooms, okay? Paying that extra $10 for a city tax, I know that we need to go to the state level for this to get this to happen, but I want to work on that because that could bring in millions of tax dollars. Nobody sees that $10 on their tax bill, on their hotel bill, I mean. I go to Massachusetts, I'm paying $29.99 that goes directly to the city. We need to work on that. That will bring millions of dollars in, and it's something that I really want to work at. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve?
So I sat on the board of Portland's Board of Assessment Review for a year. I was then on the state Board of Property Tax Review for 2 years. I also have part of my legal practice is on tax appeals. So no, Natalie, I'm not naive. Okay? I do know what I'm talking about. South Portland reassessed its properties in what will go down as one of the most out of whack years in history for real estate values. And then we shifted the value from commercial to residential because, again, it was COVID and it was a funky year. When we look back on this in 50 years, that's going to be an anomaly on the point, okay? And so, although assessments are supposed to be revenue neutral, it was if you look at the city as a whole, but for residential, it wasn't. People's taxes went up. And then earlier this year, when we had record inflation, the highest gas prices on record, the highest grocery prices on record, our city council looked around and voted for a 5% tax increase. You can look it up. It went from $14.10 to $15.50, okay? It's on the assessed website. I'm not going to ask my hardworking neighbors to do that because we can't balance a budget or we can't increase revenues. Dick's idea is incredible. He might have stolen this paper from me, okay? Because I used to live in Las Vegas, and that's where they generate revenue on the hotels, and they haven't seen a decrease at all, okay? We can also charge for parking for out of South Portland residents at Bug Light and Willard.
The next question. What would support business growth in South Portland? And we're going to start with Natalie.
I think that having what would help is having some sort of a liaison or an office to facilitate communications between the business owners and city staff. If you've seen in the Century over the last couple weeks, or actually going back, the confusion that happened this year with regard to people being able to have their eating out in the sidewalks and in the streets, and that's a lot of times small business owners just don't know where to go. Rob and I have an interesting story. Well, I don't have enough time to tell it, but we're a small landlord, and there was a requirement. We were supposed to register, and we're pretty sophisticated, and we got sent around to 3 different offices, and nobody could give us an answer. I think what we do need to do is really have a commitment to making a kind of a one-stop shop to help businesses get started on that. Then we need to help them with other kinds of resources, but that's my number one idea for the time being. And also I have a lot to learn. I do want to say that I don't know all I hope that you don't think I'm sitting up here acting as if I know all the answers, because I don't. And I look forward to learning and developing my expertise and listening to those of you in the community who are small business owners and can help me understand the problems that you face.
Thank you. Richard.
I think one of the most important things that we need to do is listen to business owners. It can't be passive when we can't expect businesses to constantly come to city council meetings and say, hey, you know, I'm having a problem with this, I'm having a problem. We need to find a way to reach out to the business owners. And I don't just mean certain business owners. There's a lot of business owners that are really engaged with what's going on in the city. But one of the most important things we need is business stability. And that means we can't have rules that are constantly shifting. We need them to be transparent, we need them to be fair, and we need them to be consistent. You know, we have some great businesses in South Portland, and I want to go back to, and it's awful that sometimes I hear people say, well, South Portland isn't business friendly anymore. Well, I want to go back to where I hear on the streets, South Portland is business friendly. And, you know, I want them to be able to reach out to the city council, to the committees and saying, you know, this would help us if you could do this. Or, you know, come to us with their plans and ideas and be a part of their business. So I really just think that, you know, getting feedback and, you know, on the effects of what we're doing for rules and stuff like that. I just think that we need to be communicative with the businesses.
Thank you. Steve?
You know, South Portland is an attractive place for businesses right now compared to other areas in Maine, so I don't want to make it sound like it's negative. I think we can do a better job of supporting our existing businesses. And so my day job is representing employers. I have employers as small as 3 employees on up to international employers with hundreds of thousands. Okay, that's all I do day in and day out. So I have a pretty good idea of what their needs are, and Dick touched on it. A lot of it is stability and predictability, right? They can't be fearful that on the whims of a meeting, everything's going to change, or they've got to train their employees a different way suddenly. And so I think we can do a better job of that. And as Natalie alluded to, the issues with the knitting nook, getting turned around, office to office with outdoor seating. And the owner of that business is a friend of mine. And, we had an event there recently, and it was wonderful. And we used the outdoor space, which actually is in a parking lot. It doesn't take up any sidewalk space. And it was COVID friendly. These are things we should be encouraging our businesses to do. And you shouldn't have to run around to multiple answers. And what she heard back from a sitting council member was, well, you should have listened to the meeting. So after working for 80, 100 hours a week, you're supposed to tune into every meeting too. We should actually look at seeing if there's a role in our current city staff to work as a small business liaison to prevent that from happening again.
Thank you. Brendan.
I do support small businesses. I support, definitely. I'm always giving my money to small businesses. My mom up in Bar Harbor opened a bookstore over the summer because the cruise ships had to get past her bookstore, and she thought, why not? And so it's been great hearing about what it's like to run a bookstore on the right in Bar Harbor. That being said, I support the small businesses. The major problem that they're having, and I'm sure we all notice, we see hiring signs everywhere. One of the reasons I support businesses that take care of their workers. But another reason is the people don't have places to live. Some business owner opens a business, I want workers. If there's no place to live, the workers aren't going to go there. They're going to move to Waterville, they're going to go work in Waterville. So that is a problem, and that connects to the housing. Also communication, as he had touched on. Most business owners, and people forget this, they don't live in South Portland. They're not going to vote for me. They're not going to vote in this election. They live in Westbrook, Portland, other places. So there needs to be a better communication between the city and the business owners when it comes to various policies. That's not a criticism, but I have heard from business owners that they get a little misinformed on that. But as they all pointed out, we are on the top 10 in a list, and that obviously going to attract people to come here. And I want the business to be thriving big time.
Thank you. So that was the end of the 90-second response questions. And let people just settle for a minute, and we'll do a few lightning round questions. And we'll take a little bit longer time on that, not a lot, but let's go with 30 seconds for them. These lightning round questions are just, the candidates can answer yes or no, or they can add, half a minute's worth of opinion on it. Are you ready? Yeah,
Didn't the directions say 10 seconds on
they
that?
did, but we have more time.
Oh, okay.
Yep. I am watching the clock. It did say 10 seconds, and you don't have to take 30 seconds, but you may take 30 seconds, all right? Okay, so the first one is, should South Portland combine with Portland's Metro bus service? And we'll start with Richard.
Me. I'm going to say it depends on the impacts to the budget and the service, basically. I mean, I don't know that information, but I'd be more than willing to look into it. And if it does impact, has a big impact on the budget and the service, we'd have to look at it.
And Steve?
If it improves services and makes fiscal sense, then yes.
Brendan?
Yes, a lot of people that live in South Portland and work in Portland and vice versa, there's a problem with the bus schedule matching up and getting there and coming home from work, especially when you get off work late. So yes, I do. I think that's a good place to start on it, issues like that.
Natalie?
I'll go against the tide and say no, because it's my understanding that when this came up several years ago, it was going to result in the reduction of routes. And I would like to understand that better before I say anything other than no.
Okay. The next question. Should there be more citizen engagement in local government? And we'll start with Steve.
Yes, and it starts with council encouraging debate. Right now, it seems that every single vote is unanimous. And if you dare speak up in opposition, you get labeled, or you have a counselor calling you names on social media. That's the environment we foster right now. That's not how leaders should engage in civic involvement. And you've seen it here tonight, right? We all came here as two of us have to work together, but yet you've heard nothing but attacks and barbs. That's not how civic government should work.
Brendan.
I think the city is doing a good job on it. I got involved on 2 committees because I called one of the councilors that I want to be on a committee, and he said yes, and I ended up on the Civic Service Committee, where I've been loving it for the past year or two. I think let's just say my experience with the town council has been nothing but welcoming. I never had a problem with them. I emailed them maybe between a thank you or a full paragraph. I'm running because one of them emailed me back and told me to run. So I love our counselors.
Natalie.
Getting back to engagement, citizens getting engaged. Yes, it's always a good idea. And again, I'd encourage you, the big opportunity right now is our comprehensive plan. If you look at the South Portland 2040.com, lots of opportunity to really have some input in what's going to happen in our community for the next 15 years.
Thank you. Richard.
Absolutely. Join a committee. Engagement is a two-way street. Engage and respond.
Okay. The third and final lightning round question. Should South Portland accept more immigrants? Brendan.
100% yeah. I think we're all from a family of immigrants, unless you're a native, but I don't think it's fair to, my ancestors came through from Ireland, and I don't think I have the right to shut the door. So, yeah.
Natalie?
Yes, and also we need to work all of us need to make an effort so they can work. They want to be part of our community. We have jobs, we need their skills, and we need to welcome them.
Richard?
Yes, legally and morally we will. But as I said before, I think the city needs help, and I think that we need to do it responsibly.
And Steve?
Yes, and we need to ensure that there's proper support from state and federal governments and the surrounding communities. South Portland cannot solve a humanitarian crisis alone.
Thank you. We're now at the point that the candidates can give their 2-minute closing statements, and we'll begin with Natalie.
I'd like to thank you once again, for being here and listening to me. You've had a chance to hear 4 different candidates with different experiences and outlooks. And as voters, you will choose 2 who you believe will do the very best job for you to help our community move forward in a positive way. I want to close by repeating some of my priorities, areas that are important to me. And those include making sure our schools have adequate resources to deal with the influx of students from different backgrounds, many of whom are non-native students. Preparing a comprehensive plan to guide our city for the next 15 years. Working to expand housing opportunities that meet the needs of middle-class working people who cannot find places to live in our city. Trying to move beyond hydrocarbons, including tanks that sit empty for years on land that could be used for other things. Getting the stalled housing project at the old city public works yard back on track. Applying for grant funds to remedy storm drain pollution on Willard Beach and build other infrastructure. And I look forward to hearing from you, the residents of South Portland, about your priorities. And I thank you very much for listening to me tonight.
And Brendan?
So my closing statement, I just want to bring up the fact that I appreciate that the 3 of them and I decided to run. Because there are thousands of people here. Thank you for coming, by the way, and everyone involved and excited to learn about us through website, Facebook, or you know what I mean. But the fact that the 4 of us stepped up means a lot. If I wasn't running, I don't know if somebody else would be right here, but then these 3 would be here. And I think it is and I just would like to give a shout out to them for stepping up. Now to me, basically, I am a young guy. I'm 33, I think we'll go with 33. My birthday was a couple months ago. I work in a restaurant industry. My mom is getting old. I'm not saying she's getting old, I need something to do, but I mean, it's making her seeing her get old is making me more aware of issues that affect seniors. I know the issues from life experience that affect young people trying to find housing, people sleeping on the couch of a friend because they can't find housing, or moving back in with their parents. But then I'm also interested in, but we also have an older demographic. I have a disability. I've said that many times. That's usually my opening line, even at a comedy show. But almost all of us have a disability, and we're all temporarily able. If you don't have a disability now, you're going to get one of some sort. And I want to make we got a guy handing them out outside. But anyway, but I do want to make this place accessible to all. There's a reason why when the ADA happened, George Bush, the father George W. Bush, said that this was like tearing down the Berlin Wall, because when we don't have things in places for people with disabilities, it feels like there's a wall and a barrier, and I want to bring those barriers down and making it welcome to every single person that wants to be in this city.
Thank you. Steve?
Sure, and I'm going to start with something that may be a bit unconventional, but tell you how appreciative I am of the other people running. When I started to think about this, I emailed Dick and asked him if he would meet up with me, and told him, you're not going to get anything out of it. It's me picking your brain and your resources. And he said yes immediately. And we had a great talk, and I learned a lot from him. I had an event on Willard Beach this weekend. Dick and Brendan came, and Brendan came because I asked him, come see the beach from my eyes and see how the dog owners use it. And he did, with an open mind, and it was wonderful to see. And that's the type of people that we have. You know, there's 4 choices, and I think we're all pretty unique in our backgrounds and our ideas. So you have to ask yourself, do you want more of the same? Right? I was accused of running against things, of misquoting things, of being naive. Do you want to foster that environment to continue? Right? Do you want to have unanimous votes, no opposing views, or do you want someone who's going to hold the city's feet to the fire and represent the citizens? Look, I know I'm the outsider. Every current city councilor is out there stumping for one of the people up here. I see the comments on Facebook. I see the yard signs. I know they don't want me on council. They don't want me shining a light on how things operate. But that's what this city needs. We can't continue down the path where practicality takes a back seat to popular sound bites. We need someone with common sense who's not going to make our hardworking citizens pay for our budget problems. I know I'm that person. I care deeply about this community. That's why I'm running. South Portland is a special, special place, and I can't think of a better place to raise my kids. But we need to get the ship back on course, and if I'm elected, that's what I'll do.
Thank you. Richard?
Well, you're the young guy, I'm the old guy. So I just no, I talking men. Look, I am not perfect. Okay, I'm not even a tie guy. Okay, I wore this tie tonight because I bleed South Portland, and it has little SPs all over it. Okay, I'm a guy who wears shorts and a T-shirt, and I go and I talk to people all throughout the city. And you know, I may not always get it right, but I'll be the first one to tell you I was wrong. But you know what? I will call you and I will talk to you and I will respond to you. 12 years on the school board, I don't think, there may be people out there that could prove me wrong, but I don't think I missed any emails. I don't think I missed any text messages, and I certainly didn't miss any text message or emails from employees. And I always went to bat for them, and I can't tell you enough how proud I am of our police force, our fire department, parks and recs, public works, sanitation, everybody. You guys make this city great, okay? I want to support you. I want to be there for you. I want to be your city councilor. I want to negotiate your contracts, and I want to be able to say, hey, you know what? If you need to stop by my house and talk to me, stop by my house. My wife might not like it, but no, listen, call me, text me, email me. If you want to meet for a cup of coffee, I'll meet. I love coffee. I'll meet you anywhere for coffee, okay? So please just consider voting for me. Again, not perfect. A little rough around the edges, but I will work hard for you. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I will end with this. The League wants to give everyone here a big thank you for joining us. Links to the forum will be available through the League of Women Voters of Maine. That's LWVME. So that you can find the link and share it with friends. This has been recorded, so people that can't be here. And on the City of South Portland's website. During the last half hour, we are inviting the public, your audience here, to meet and greet with the candidates. You can also request contact information for any questions that didn't get covered, because they're here to talk to you. This building will close at 8:30. You may, of course, move your conversations to the parking lot, but we need to let the custodian close up and go home. Finally, and most importantly, the League is especially grateful to the candidates for putting themselves out there to run for office. All governing begins at home. Best of luck to you all.